Hello, Year 6, welcome back. It is your English lesson today. As I explained in my message to you about Big Read, there's no video today for Big Read because it's just some of the questions that your fellow Year 6 students wrote for you for the Big Read. So I sent those out directly just as a, not an Excel, what's the word I'm looking for? PDF sheet. But there is an English video. This is our final session in English before you begin your hot write, which will start tomorrow. And I'll also be giving you Thursday as well to do that. And then Friday to write it up as your neat copy and send it in. That might be typing it up ideally if you have access to that. But anyway, we'll get to that when we get to it. Let's focus on today. Today, your WOLT is to plan your writing and to incorporate previous work into your plan, make layout and sequential decisions, think about ways in which paragraphs can be linked and flow throughout your piece of writing. So let's just go over that. Plan our writing, that's pretty simple. But incorporating previous pieces of work. So when we say incorporate, what we mean is to include, to bring in and to make a part of your work based around previous work. So that's thinking back over everything we've learnt in these 3 weeks and making sure that is all being included in your final piece of writing. Layout and sequential decisions. That's thinking about how you're going to make your newspaper report look like a newspaper report. So that should be doing things in columns. That should be including the pictures. That should be including a caption for each picture. That should be including quotes, having a headline, all of those things that make something look like a newspaper report. At the beginning of the sequence, just after we did the cold write, you looked at several different examples of newspaper reports. So if you can't remember, you should be going back and looking at those to remind yourself what a newspaper report looks like. And your finished piece of writing should look like a newspaper report. And then finally, ways in which paragraphs can be linked and flow throughout your piece of writing. Well, we did some practicing on paragraphing last week, at the end of last week on Friday. So we should all hopefully be pretty confident with paragraphing accurately now. So, to be able to tick everything off that Wilf and to be able to deliver a really good hot write, we need to think back over what we have learnt in this unit. And this isn't everything we've learnt. These are just a few of the big things we've learnt in these 3 weeks. So what I'd like you to do, if you're in school, I'd like you to turn to one another and talk through what things you can remember that we have learnt within this 3-week unit of learning. If you're at home, see if you can remember these, either say them out loud, try writing them down, whatever you want to do, but see how many of them you can remember. So pause the video here and list as many things as you can remember that we have covered this 3-week unit. When you've done that, start the video again, and I'll show you some of the big things that we have covered in these 3 weeks. Speak to you in a moment. Okay, so some of the things we've covered. Features of a newspaper report. That was when we were annotating and highlighting those 2 newspaper reports. One that was a waggle, what a good one looks like, and one that had some errors, and you were identifying the errors to help you be aware of what things not to do in your own piece of writing as well. We also looked at being concise. That's important in the first paragraph, and actually it's important throughout a newspaper report. You don't want to be blabbering on and on, because newspaper reports should be something that you can read that doesn't take you too long. Newspapers are often read by people on trains, on buses, whilst they're traveling to and from work. So stories in a newspaper report need to be concise, but you must still include everything, which is why we don't simply say make them short, because they need to be long enough to include everything, but concise enough that the person reading them doesn't lose interest and stop midway through. We looked at maintaining formal tone. That was one of the times we used the CGP books. So we looked at how to maintain a formal tone throughout, something you should be doing. So we should be seeing nice formal tone being maintained throughout the entire piece of writing. We looked at how to research our topic, and you all did some excellent research based around asteroids. So you'll be able to get some of that knowledge, some of that learning coming through, permeating, let's say, that means coming through in your writing and having sections and paragraphs that are all about that. Paragraphing, as I've just said, really important. That's the thing we did last on Friday of last week. Making sure that we have got all of the right paragraphs in. That's going to come through today in our planning. Use of parenthesis, that's what we did in yesterday's lesson. So making sure that we are using parenthesis to help us be concise. So I am expecting to see in your hot write some examples of brackets for parenthesis, dashes and commas for parenthesis, showing off all those skills that we've had. Both me and Miss Barrett will be looking for that from your pieces of writing. So also, no, it wasn't parenthesis we did yesterday. It was past progressive tense we did yesterday. We looked at parenthesis last week, past progressive tense. So we should be seeing a few examples in your newspaper report of some past progressive tense. You were all very good at that actually yesterday. So hopefully we should be seeing some examples of that. The whole thing doesn't need to be in past progressive tense, but you've got some examples that you wrote yesterday. You can take those and put them straight in. If there was something wrong with them, myself or Miss Barrett will have already picked up on that for you. So if you need to amend them a little bit and correct them, then that's fine, but they can be used and put straight in. That's what we do. We do all the work that we need in advance. And then the hot write is just putting it all together. Okay, so how you decide to do your plan is up to you. I've suggested something like this that you could draw out, where you have what is going into each paragraph down one side of a table, and then some examples of sentences you might use on the right-hand side. Obviously, I've not done all the work for you here. I've put lots of questions that you'd need to answer in these sections, but they are going to be what your paragraphs are. That is sort of for certain. The only thing you might decide to do is you might decide to give yourself more paragraphs if you'd like, but you're going to need these 6 at the very least. So paragraph 1, that needs to be the 5 W's. The who, what, where, why, and when, I've kind of put in for you. I've left the where blank because it doesn't really matter where in the country you decide to set it. Obviously, the where is Elliot and Mum's house and sort of lands and the cowshed. But where you decide that is up to you. You could make it in Nottingham if you want. You could make it in London. You could make it in Cornwall. You could make it in Scotland. I don't really mind. It can be anywhere you wish. But that's up to you. That's why I've left that blank. Paragraph 2 is where you go into more detail about the story in general, paragraph 2 and 3. So paragraph 2, I've suggested maybe you do that where you go into some more detail about Elliot and his mum. Paragraph 3, that could be where you go into more detail about the damage that's been caused. You might decide there's other things you want to do in paragraph 2 and 3. You might decide you need a third paragraph where you're going into more detail. Again, that's completely up to you. But I've put in some prompt questions there that might help you think about what you can include. Paragraph 4, or in paragraph 5, if you decide you want another paragraph for more detail. But paragraph 4, I've put that's where you're going to start putting some of your facts about asteroids. But remember, you're not just listing facts and putting them in bullet points. This isn't a non-chronological report. They need to be written up as full sentences where you go into a little more detail. Paragraph 5, that's where you have your quotes from witnesses. So that's where you can put in all those things we practiced when we looked at direct speech. And then paragraph 6, they're your sort of final statements about the story. Anything to sort of finalize and conclude your overall news report. When you've done all that, you should then be able to go through and think about what sentences you might want to use. You can look back over the work you've already done, and you can choose some key sentences that could go in each of these paragraphs. By the time that's all done, you'll have a really solid plan, and you'll be really ready then to start doing your hot write with some sentences already on sort of ready to go and ready to put straight in. So how you decide to do it is up to you, but that is a really good suggestion, and I'd certainly use this. I would suggest you pause this screen and have this up for you to see as you begin to plan. When you've done your plan, send those in to us on Class Dojo so that we can check them. There is a video tomorrow for English, but it will be very short because tomorrow and Thursday, your task will be to do your hot write. We always give you 2 sessions in school. You're having exactly the same amount of sessions at home. So 2 sessions to write up, 1 session to then copy that up neat, having made any edits, changes, blue for review that you need to do. So there will be a video tomorrow, but there won't then be another video on Thursday or Friday, because then your job is just to be finishing off editing, correcting, using blue for review, and then writing or typing up a neat copy of your story. So I'll be back with you very briefly tomorrow to explain and just do a few last reminders for your hot write. But that is everything for today. Best of luck. Any issues, as ever, just message us. We'll do our best to help you out. But today's objective overall is to get your hot right planned. Speak to you again tomorrow. But for now, goodbye.